few days ago, I had a conversation with Pilar Orti on Twitter, who runs 21st Century Work Life, and she was talking about ethical walls in Microsoft Teams. And I replied back, and she had some questions around whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Was a bit worried about the implementation of it, and I thought I'd give us some context on what that means and why it's really valuable for certain industries when they use Microsoft Teams. So this feature is going to pop up in Microsoft Teams in the future, and it's going to be called information barriers. So what it's really useful for is avoiding conflicts of interest between limiting individuals and how they can communicate and collaborate with each other in Microsoft Teams, because there's a number of different industries where this can be a big problem. So limiting the disclosure of information by controlling the communication between the holders of information and the colleagues representing different interests is really important for these regulated industries. And some examples of this are in financial services. This is really important because we've all heard of names hitting the headlines for insider trading cases where one part of a big bank has heard about some information that was really, really sensitive, and then they've made a trade on the stock market based on that, and there's been a huge windfall, and then we've found out that they weren't meant to have that information, it wasn't public, and then that's then violated some certain financial regulations. So the scenario that information barriers in Teams accommodates is when you've got a trader, like a stock market trader, and a financial advisor. So say somebody who is advising on a IPO into the stock market, they might have some information that's really sensitive related to the company, like there's about to be a massive deal come through, or they're about to have a massive dump in their ability to do business essentially. And if the trader finds out about that, they can either sell that stock or buy a whole bunch of that stock to anticipate that action taking place and that event occurring. So stopping that and having an information barrier between those two people within a bank or a financial services organization is really important. A second is in professional services, particularly when you've got a part of a firm that's providing auditing services and another that's providing business consulting services. This was made the news in the UK recently, where the big four consulting firms were told they can no longer provide auditing and consulting to the same client. And this was very apparent with the collapse of Carillion last year, where the audit that was done looked like the books were all fine, but then not long after, the company failed. So questions were asked about how accurate and fit for purpose was the audit, and was that audit maybe not carried out in as robustly as what it should have been, because the firm was also making a lot of money on consulting that company as well. So having a clear delineation between the auditors and the consultants is really important, so that they don't share information and there's no conflict of interest between the two. In insurance, this is really important as well, because you might have two parties that have policies with the same insurer, and there might be a conflict of interest between the two, where potentially one party is making a claim against another party, and they both have policies, and so you want them to not be able to talk to each other, so there's no conflict of interest between the parties where there might be problems with how that claim is handled. And then lastly, in a legal sense, you might have, similar to insurance, we might have one lawyer who's representing a party who is actually litigating against another client of the same firm. So there could be a case against the two of them, and so you want a clear line down the middle, so that obviously the case can't get spread between the two, because then obviously that would not be great for the both parties that are in a court essentially. So those are the four examples of where information barriers in Teams are going to be really useful. And in our experience of deploying other Microsoft communication and collaboration tools in these industries, these become really important and can be blockers to widespread adoption within the organization, where those regulatory needs are really important. So I hope that provides some context. If you've got any questions, leave a comment below, but like or share, and let me know if there's anything else I can help with in this area on Twitter. Thanks.